Have you ever walked out of a salon, glanced at your reflection in a shop window, and felt a quiet jolt of surprise because the haircut staring back at you somehow made you look older than when you walked in? It's a strangely intimate disappointment, the kind that settles not in your hair but in your chest. And yet, it's far more common than most women over 60 ever admit out loud. Hair, at this stage of life, stops behaving like the loyal companion it once was. It thins, it softens, it shifts in texture and movement. But more importantly, it becomes a storyteller. It shapes not only how the world sees you, but how you step into the world each morning. And if the story your hair is telling no longer matches the woman you've become, confident, seasoned, beautifully aware, then something needs to change. The truth is, the right haircut doesn't just flatter your features. It lifts the face, brightens the eyes, and awakens a quiet sense of vitality you may not have felt in years. The wrong one, on the other hand, can pull everything downward, dulling the natural light you already have. That contrast is powerful, and it's the reason some haircuts make you look instantly refreshed while others seem to drain you. Today, we're stepping into that space where style meets identity. I'm going to share 3 haircuts that consistently help women over 60 look more vibrant, polished, and unmistakably modern without chasing youth, and without trying to become someone you're not. And yes, we'll also talk about 3 styles that often age the face in subtle ways women don't realize until it's too late. Stay with me until the end, because there's a psychology behind why certain shapes bring out your radiance while others flatten it. Once you understand that, you'll walk into your next appointment, not with hesitation, but with clarity and confidence. But before we begin, let me ask you this. When was the last time you looked in the mirror after a haircut and felt you truly recognized yourself? 1. Soft layered bob, the return of softness and natural lift. There's something almost poetic about the moment a woman rediscovers softness in her own reflection. I'm thinking of Carol, 62, who had worn the same shoulder-length cut for nearly 2 decades. It wasn't a bad haircut. It was simply a memory of who she used to be. One afternoon, exhausted by the way her hair clung to her cheeks and flattened around her jawline, she decided to try something different. The stylist suggested a soft, layered bob, nothing drastic, nothing loud, just lightness carved thoughtfully into shape. When Carol looked up, she didn't gasp, she exhaled. The woman in the mirror looked awake again. Soft layers have a way of doing that. They catch the light differently, almost like gentle brushstrokes along the face. They lift the cheekbones, ease the jawline, and create subtle movement that brings life back to aging hair without overwhelming it. For women whose strands have grown finer or lost density, the soft layered bob is one of the few cuts that can restore dimension without requiring heat tools, heavy styling products, or complicated daily routines. Hair experts often talk about the power of framing, but framing is not just technical, it's emotional. A well-placed layer around the eyes doesn't just open the face. It opens the expression. And when volume returns at the crown, even just a little, the entire silhouette changes. The face appears brighter, the posture more lifted, as if the hair is quietly offering support from beneath. Imagine running your fingers through light, airy layers that fall back into place without effort. Imagine stepping outside and feeling a breeze slide through your hair instead of pushing against a heavy curtain of strands. These small moments accumulate into something larger. A sense of self that feels unburdened. Women often tell me they want a haircut that makes them look younger, but what they truly mean is that they want to feel unweighted by their hair, by expectations, by the invisible pressure to maintain a look that no longer feels like their own. The soft layered bob answers that desire with a kind of graceful understatement. It doesn't demand attention, it earns it quietly. And here's an interesting truth. Many women overlook softness is powerful. As we age, harsh lines can compete with the natural changes in our features, while soft shapes collaborate with them. The layered bob doesn't fight the face, it supports it. It elevates without insisting. It gives the illusion of fullness without sacrificing ease. That's why so many women describe it as the first haircut in years that feels like it's working with them, not against them. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that your current hairstyle is holding you in the past? Even if you can't quite articulate why? Many women over 60 stay loyal to a familiar cut because it once made them feel beautiful. But beauty evolves, and your haircut should evolve with you. The emotional shift often arrives in a single quiet moment. Carol told me she didn't realize how heavy her old hair had become until it was gone. It wasn't just my hair, she said. It was the version of me I was trying to keep alive. What replaced it wasn't youth, it was clarity. A softness that matched the woman she had grown into. If you're craving a change but don't want to abandon length entirely, the soft layered bob is one of the most forgiving transitions. It lets you keep movement, maintain femininity, and still enjoy a polished, modern shape. It's simple without being plain, youthful without pretending. And if you're wondering whether this cut fits your lifestyle, ask yourself this: what would your mornings feel like if your hair naturally lifted your face instead of pulling it down? What would it feel like to look in the mirror and see, not a different woman, but a clearer version of yourself? As lovely as the soft layered bob is, there's another option for women who crave an even bolder shift, one that carries a spark of confidence and freedom the moment you see it. Let's step into that energy next. A 2. Pixie with volume, the courageous breath of air transformation. There is a very particular moment in a woman's life, usually somewhere after 60, when she realizes she's carrying weight she never meant to carry. Not emotional weight, though that too. I'm talking about the quiet heaviness of hair that no longer lifts, no longer frames, no longer dances the way it once did. A heaviness that doesn't just sit on the head, but settles into the spirit. That was Patricia's story at 67. For years she held on to her shoulder-length hair because it felt safe, familiar, almost like a comfort blanket for the version of herself she used to be. But as the years passed and her strands thinned in ways she didn't expect, her hair stopped comforting her and started dimming her. She could feel it in pictures, in store windows, in the way she avoided meeting her own eyes in the mirror on rushed mornings. One day, out of frustration more than bravery, she told her stylist she wanted something lighter. The stylist suggested a pixie with volume at the crown. Not a severe crop, not the rigid cuts that can make a woman feel exposed, but a textured, airy, sculpted pixie that lifted from the root and released the face from its shadows. Patricia hesitated. "What if I don't look like myself?" she whispered. And the stylist smiled and said, "What if you finally do?" When the cut was finished and the hair gently tousled, Patricia didn't gasp, she blinked. Then she blinked again, staring at a woman whose eyes looked wider, whose cheekbones seemed to rise on their own, whose entire face appeared lit from within. It wasn't youth, she saw, it was presence. A return of the brightness she feared had faded for good. That is the magic of a pixie with volume. It releases the face. It uncovers the sparkle. It makes room for expression again. The added height at the crown rewrites the proportions of the face, creating a natural lift that no cream or contour can replicate. The soft texture prevents the cut from looking sharp or harsh, giving it a playful elegance that moves with you, instead of sitting stiff on your head. And there's something else too, something deeper. Women often believe short hair will make them look older. Yet when the hair is shaped with intention, layered to build airy fullness, Carved to follow the gentle architecture of the face, it does the opposite. It reveals. It clarifies. It lets the world see the confidence you thought time had quieted. The emotional pivot comes suddenly. Patricia told me she didn't realize how much her old hair muted her until the weight was lifted. She felt taller walking to her car, as if the ground itself had shifted beneath her. "I wasn't trying to look younger," she said. "I was trying to look alive." And the pixie gave her that an aliveness she hadn't felt in years. Let me ask you something, honestly and without judgment. Have you ever looked at your reflection and felt the woman inside you was brighter, more spirited, more awake than the woman your hairstyle was showing the world? If the answer is yes, it might not be your age that's dulling your features. It might simply be the shape of your hair. The pixie with volume isn't just a cut. It's a kind of liberation. A declaration that softness and boldness can coexist. A reminder that reinvention isn't reserved for youth. It can bloom at any age, especially when you finally allow yourself to step into the version of you that feels light, unburdened, unmistakably present. And if the idea of going short feels thrilling, but you still long for movement, for the whisper of length brushing your shoulders, for the freedom of hair that shifts and sways with every step, the next style might be the one that speaks directly to your heart. Let's explore that gentle, free-spirited possibility next. A 3. Long layered shag. When movement becomes the new youthfulness, there is a kind of beauty that doesn't shout. It breathes. It sways. It lingers in the way hair moves when a woman turns her head or laughs or walks toward the sunlight. And for so many women over 60, that sense of movement is the very thing they miss without ever putting it into words. They look at photos from years ago and can't quite explain what feels different. It isn't just the color. It isn't just the texture. It's the life in the hair, the way it shifted, lifted, responded. That longing is exactly what brought Linda, 65, to her stylist after months of feeling like her long, heavy hair wasn't telling the truth about her anymore. She loved her length. It had always been part of her identity, part of her softness, part of the woman she still felt she was on the inside. But every time she looked in the mirror, the hair hanging past her shoulders seemed to pull her expression downward. She didn't look older, she looked weighed down. Her stylist suggested a long layered shag, gentle, cascading layers carved with intention to bring back movement, without taking away the length she cherished. Linda agreed, hesitant but hopeful, and something remarkable happened. As the strands were lifted and reshaped, her face slowly re-emerged. The hair no longer clung to her jawline. It no longer dragged her features downward. It framed her again, but this time with a tenderness that felt like a homecoming. When she finally looked at her reflection, she felt her breath catch, not because she looked younger, but because she looked unburdened. It was the first time in years she recognized the woman who loved walking barefoot in her garden, the woman who laughed loudly, the woman who still felt a spark inside even when her hair had stopped showing it. That's the quiet power of the long layered shag. It restores motion, and motion restores emotion. The layers don't just add volume, they loosen the visual weight that often settles around the face as hair ages. When strands become lighter and more textured, they fall in a way that softens every feature they touch. It's like opening a window in a room you didn't realize had become stale. And here's something most women never expect: movement reads as youth. Not the youth of age, but the youth of spirit. The gentle sway of hair suggests vitality, curiosity, a woman who is still very much in conversation with the world around her. It hints at ease rather than effort. Women often underestimate how much this matters, how hair that moves with you changes the way people perceive not just your style, but your energy. Run your fingers through the idea for a moment. Imagine waking up and seeing hair that settles naturally into shape, hair that doesn't fight you, hair that responds to a breeze, the way your favorite scarf does effortlessly and with grace. Imagine how that could shift how you feel walking out the door. Wouldn't it be a relief to have hair that mirrors the freedom and openness you've earned? Let me ask you this, gently but honestly. Are you holding on to long hair because it reflects who you are today, or because it reminds you of who you once were? There's no wrong answer, but sometimes the right cut helps you see yourself without nostalgia tugging at the edges. The long layered shag doesn't erase the past. It honors it. It keeps the length you love, but lets it breathe, lets it flow. Lets it tell the story of a woman who hasn't stopped evolving. It's the kind of style that doesn't demand attention, yet inevitably turns heads, simply because it moves the way confidence moves, quietly and with direction. And as beautiful and liberating as these three youthful cuts can be, there's an equally important truth we need to address. Some hairstyles, familiar, comfortable, even beloved, can subtly age the face or drain its brightness without you noticing. And many women only realize it after the damage is done. Let's talk about those next, so you can recognize them before they hold you back. B1. Overly short, harsh crop. When short becomes sharp, there's a certain kind of courage that comes with cutting your hair short. It can feel like shedding old layers of expectation, stepping into a version of yourself that's cleaner, freer, uncomplicated. But there's another side to going short. One many women don't see until the mirror reveals it. And it's not the haircut that shocks them. It's the way it changes the softness of their expression. Helen was 68 when she decided to go bold. She had spent years feeling that her hair was thinning, losing its density, losing its spark. She wanted something easy, something fresh, something that made getting ready in the morning feel less like a chore and more like relief. So she asked for a short crop. The kind she saw on chic women in magazines, who looked effortlessly modern. But the moment the stylist turned her chair toward the mirror, her heart sank a little. She didn't look bad. She simply looked exposed. Too much scalp, too much sharpness. Too much of her face revealed without anything to soften it. The haircut had taken away weight, yes, but it had taken away warmth too. What many women forget is that ultra-short crops remove, not just length, but movement. They erase the gentle curves that help balance the natural changes of an aging face. They reduce the frame that softens the jawline, diminishes the appearance of hollowness, and adds a sense of vitality. Without that frame, the features can appear harsher, more angular, more tired, even when the woman herself feels anything but. Helen told me later, it wasn't the age she saw in the mirror that startled her. It was the loss of familiarity. She no longer recognized the woman looking back, as if the haircut had stripped away a part of her identity, rather than revealing her essence. She didn't miss her long hair. She missed the gentle buffer that made her feel like herself. Short hair can be stunning, but the secret lies in balance. A crop that is too tight or too severe can highlight every line, every dip, every shift in texture. It can magnify rather than soften, and it can unintentionally make a woman appear older. Not because she is older, but because the haircut doesn't collaborate with her features. Let me ask you honestly. Have you ever cut your hair shorter than expected and felt like you suddenly had to work harder, more makeup, more earrings, more effort, just to restore the softness you used to have naturally? Women rarely talk about it, but the truth is that an overly short cut can take more energy to style, not less. And the irony is that most women choose it hoping for simplicity. The emotional pivot often comes quietly, sometimes weeks later, when a woman catches her reflection under harsh lighting or in a passing window and feels a flicker of regret. It isn't that she dislikes short hair. It's that she misses the comfort of movement. The way a few strands falling across the forehead can make the eyes appear brighter, or how a sweep of hair near the temples can soften a moment of fatigue. This doesn't mean short hair is off limits. Far from it. But for many women over 60, the harsh crop removes more than it gives. The right shortcut should feel like freedom, not exposure. It should create softness, not sharpen edges. It should make you feel more like yourself, not less. And while this is one of the most common aging traps, it's not the only one. There's another style far more familiar, far more sentimental that women cling to for years without realizing it. Maybe quietly pulling their entire face downward. Let's explore that next. B2. Long, heavy, one-length hair when length starts carrying a hidden weight. For so many women, long hair is more than a style, it's a memory. It's the years when their children were young, when they felt the wind catch their ponytail, when a compliment from a stranger on a summer afternoon stayed with them for days. Long hair can feel like the last thread, connecting you to the woman you once were. And because of that, many women hold on to it, after it has stopped serving the face they have today. Susan, 63, understood this perfectly. Her hair had always been her signature: long, straight, and unapologetically feminine. She believed cutting it would feel like letting go of a part of herself she wasn't ready to release. But as the years passed, the thickness she once had began to thin. What used to float now hung. What used to frame her smile now dragged her expression downward in a way she couldn't quite identify. She didn't realize the transformation until one morning, while getting ready for a brunch. They're excited. She caught her reflection in harsh daylight. Her long hair didn't look elegant. It looked heavy. It overshadowed her features, pulling her jawline down and making her eyes appear tired, even though she felt well rested. Her hair wasn't aging her, it was erasing her. That's the hidden truth about long, one-length hair past 60. It doesn't age you because it is long. It ages you because, over time, it loses the natural buoyancy and lift that once made it beautiful. As density decreases, the weight of the length becomes more obvious. Instead of cascading, the hair clings. Instead of moving, it collapses. Instead of brightening the face, it drains the light from it. Imagine for a moment a curtain that used to billow with a breeze. Years later, the fabric is heavier, less responsive. It still looks like a curtain, but it no longer moves with the room. That's what happens to long, unlayered hair with age. The weight becomes a quiet anchor, pulling your entire look downward. Hair experts often speak about directional pull. When strands all fall to the same point without layers or movement, they create vertical lines that work against the softening contours of a mature face. This downward pull can emphasize jowls, fine lines, and even the natural loss of volume in the mid-face. None of that reflects who you are. It reflects the physics of hair that hasn't evolved with you. The emotional shift for Susan came unexpectedly. When her stylist suggested adding layers, not cutting the length entirely, just giving it movement, she resisted. But after months of feeling disconnected from her reflection, she finally agreed. As the weight lifted from her hair, something lifted inside her too. She felt lighter. Not younger. Not transformed, just more aligned with the woman she knew herself to be. Let me ask you something with kindness and honesty. Are you keeping your long hair because it makes you feel beautiful now? Or because it once did? There's no wrong answer. But there is a profound difference between honoring your history and holding yourself hostage to it. The truth is, femininity isn't measured in inches. It's measured in presence. And sometimes, the simple act of adding soft layers or removing a few heavy inches can reveal a version of you that feels brighter, more open, more engaged with the world around you. Long hair can still be stunning after 60. When it moves, when it lifts, when it collaborates with your features instead of pulling them downward. but when it becomes a weight instead of a frame, it keeps you anchored to a past look, rather than elevating the woman you've become. And as surprising as this may sound, there's yet another style, one that seems classic, polished, even timeless, that can age a woman more subtly than any other. It's not long, it's not short, and at a glance it seems harmless. But its structure can freeze your entire look in place. Let's uncover that next. B3. The helmet or rigid bob. When precision turns into restraint, there is a kind of haircut that seems perfect on paper. Every line is clean, every strand falls exactly where it's supposed to, and the finish looks polished, almost architectural. For years, the rigid, one-length bob has embodied that ideal. Women choose it because they want simplicity, sophistication, a look that signals elegance without effort. Yet for many women over 60, that same precision becomes a quiet trap. Anna was 70 when she chose the cut. She wanted something neat, something refined, something that looked put together even on days when she didn't have the energy to fuss with her hair. Her stylist gave her a blunt bob so precise, it could have been drawn with a ruler. At first glance, she admired it. But as the days passed, she found herself avoiding mirrors she once glanced into without a second thought. What changed wasn't the haircut, it was how it behaved. It didn't move. It didn't respond. It didn't soften her. It sat on her head like an object separate from her, a perfectly shaped shell that disconnected her hair from her expression. Instead of creating ease, it created stillness. Instead of framing her features, it highlighted every angle of her jawline, every shift in the natural curves of her face. That's the hidden truth about the helmet bob. Its strength, its structure, is also its weakness. As women age, the most flattering shapes are the ones that allow breath and softness. A rigid bob removes that breath. It freezes the silhouette, making the hair appear lifeless no matter how healthy it is. It can turn even the warmest expression into something unintentionally severe, simply because the hair refuses to echo or support the emotion on the face. Imagine, for a moment, watching yourself laugh. In a softly layered bob, the hair lifts with you, moves with your cheeks, dances with your smile. In a rigid bob, nothing shifts. The face expresses, the hair stands still. That disconnect is subtle but powerful. Movement makes a woman look alive. Stillness, especially at the sides of the face, can make everything appear heavier. Anna felt it too. She told me she didn't realize how much she relied on the smallest movements of her hair to feel like herself, tucking a strand behind her ear, brushing a soft piece forward when she felt contemplative, letting her hair shift when she walked. Those gestures vanished with the rigid cut. It wasn't that she disliked the bob. It was that she no longer felt in her hair. She felt separated from it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever worn a hairstyle that looked elegant to others, but didn't feel like it belonged to you? A style that was technically flattering, but didn't echo your warmth, your softness, your inner rhythm. Hair should never silence your personality. It should extend it. The structured bob is not inherently wrong. On some women it's a masterpiece. But on many women over 60, it can harden the face, emphasize the loss of volume, and mute the lively expression that defines mature beauty. What most women truly need isn't precision. It's permission for softness, for ease, for hair that moves with the life they still feel inside. And this is where the conversation becomes richer. Because choosing the right haircut isn't just about avoiding certain styles. It's about understanding the deeper truth of what suits you. Your face shape, your texture, your personality, your energy, these elements matter more than any rule or trend. Which brings us to the most important part of this journey. How to choose a cut that reflects who you are today, not who you used to be or who you think you should be. Let's explore that next. See how to choose the right cut for you, where style meets self-understanding. Choosing the right haircut after 60 isn't about following rules or chasing trends. It's about understanding who you are now, your face, your hair, your rhythm, your life. Hair becomes honest with age. It reveals texture, density, and movement in ways it never did before, and when you choose a cut that honors those changes instead of resisting them, something beautiful happens. You stop trying to work against your hair and start letting it work for you. Think about your face shape for a moment. Round faces often light up with a bit of height at the crown, a subtle lift that opens the features and elongates the silhouette. Angular faces soften with gently feathered edges, layers that blur sharpen, erasing definition. Narrow faces come alive when there's fullness at the sides, a graceful balance of width that makes the expression feel grounded and warm. None of this is about hiding age, it's about revealing harmony. Then there is texture, one of the most misunderstood elements of mature beauty. Fine hair thrives with strategic layering and volume, because movement creates the illusion of abundance. Thick hair benefits from weight removal, not through harsh thinning, but through thoughtful shaping that frees it from heaviness. Natural waves and curls shouldn't be straightened into submission. They should be coaxed into form, shaped to enhance the softness they naturally carry. And of course, lifestyle matters more than most women admit. If you want simplicity, true, effortless simplicity, you need a cut that supports that desire. A soft layered bob or a textured pixie is often far easier to maintain than a long, heavy style that demands constant smoothing. If you enjoy styling, if you like curling a few pieces or running a brush through your hair while your coffee brews, then a layered shag may give you the versatility you crave without overwhelming your mornings. But beyond all the technicalities, there is a deeper, quieter question you should ask yourself. How do I want to feel when I look in the mirror each morning? Not how you want to look, how you want to feel. Confident, light, sophisticated, free. A haircut should be chosen with that answer in mind, because hair is not an accessory. It is an extension of your identity. Bring photos to your stylist, but bring clarity too. Tell them what you want your hair to do for you: lift, soften, move, simplify. Tell them what you no longer want to fight. A good stylist will listen not just to your words, but to the emotion beneath them. And once you find a shape that feels right, maintain it. Regular trims aren't about keeping a perfect line, they're about keeping the energy of the cut alive, preserving the intention. The truth is, the right haircut isn't about transformation. It's about recognition. It's about seeing the woman you've grown into and honoring her with a style that supports her confidence rather than dimming it. When you choose a cut that aligns with your features, your texture, and your spirit, you don't just look refreshed, you feel reconnected. And this brings us to the heart of why we're here. You've seen which cuts elevate you, which ones hold you back, and which choices reveal the radiance you still carry so naturally. Now it's time to bring all of that together. Let's step into the closing thoughts, where everything we've explored becomes a single, empowering message. When you reach a certain stage of life, beauty becomes less about chasing and more about choosing softness over harshness, movement over stillness, ease over effort. The right haircut doesn't erase the years. It honors them. It gathers every chapter you've lived and frames it in a way that feels true, harmonious, and quietly confident. That's why the three youthful cuts, we explored the soft layered bob, the pixie with volume, and the long layered shag, work so beautifully. They don't try to make you someone else. They simply reveal what time has not taken from you. And the styles to avoid. They aren't mistakes. They are reminders. Reminders that even a familiar haircut can grow out of step with who you are today. That heaviness, rigidity, or extreme sharpness can mute your expression when what you really deserve is light, breath, and presence. Recognizing what no longer serves you is not loss, it is wisdom. The most important truth is this: your hair should not pull you backward. It should support the woman you've become, not the woman you used to be. It should lift your face, but also your spirit. It should move with you, echo your inner rhythm, reaffirm your sense of self. Every time you catch your reflection in a window, or pass by a mirror without meaning to. And if you take only one thing from this entire conversation, let it be this: beauty at 60, 70, or beyond is not a negotiation. It is a declaration. A declaration that you are still here, still evolving, still deserving of a style that reflects your clarity and your confidence. A declaration that your reflection should feel like home. I would love to hear from you. Which of these haircuts speaks to you the most? Which one feels like it could bring out the woman you feel on the inside? Share your thoughts, your stories, your experiences. Your voice helps other women find their own. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video gave you a new perspective or a spark of inspiration, I hope you'll join this community by subscribing and sharing it with someone who might need it too. There is so much more to explore together: style, confidence, reinvention, and the beauty that only deepens with age. I'll see you in the next video where we continue celebrating the elegance you already possess.